Wow, having a few difficulties this morning. I was just on my Twitter and I was sending out a tweet. And as I said, I'm a one man show, so I kind of messed up the introduction there a little bit. But you all get the idea, I think, about what's going on here. Let me double check something here. It seems like to me we're having a few other difficulties as well. Uh, let's take a look. The wind is blowing like crazy still. It's kind of nuts outside. So anyway, like I said, I was trying to do too many things there. When I'm producing, directing, and starring on the show, I ought to just drop everything else and pay attention to what I'm doing. But at any rate, then there are those who like Lionel Nation. He just comes on without any kind of fanfare, which I think is probably better. But I don't mean to be dramatic with my intros, but I just figured that the message on that opening is just so important because it's so appropriate even today. Well, welcome everyone. Today is the 16th of January, 2020. I'm Roy Potter. Welcome as you come in. The chat is on, and everybody's saying that the sound is fine. That's good to hear. I appreciate that. I didn't really I never really know if I'm going to make it on a Tuesday or Thursday or any other time. Impromptus are a lot better, but this morning, after some of the information I got last night, and then earlier this morning, I felt like I should come on. So we'll just jump into it. Why did I call this the Senate lemon squeeze? For you adults out there, if you'll remember, there was a. I'm sorry. I just got to bring this up. This didn't give me the idea, but after I put it up here, it was too late. I went, whoops. I was trying to say something else that's going on, but anyway. As you know, Led Zeppelin did a song, and there's a line in there that says, "Squeeze my lemon." I'm sorry. So after I got that up, I realized what had happened. So anyway, by the way, when I was in my band in high school and college, we played that song, and I didn't know what the lyrics meant. Anyway, so much for that. I just thought I'd bring it up and let you know that. Hi, Tony. I knew as soon as I hit. That was one of the things I was doing. I was looking at Twitter, and then I looked at that and I went, I can't leave that up there. And I thought, oh my gosh, it's time to go on. Oh well, rats. Okay. Yeah, I can see you guys are already. Yeah, yeah. Donald Reed, I'm going to read yours. DC is preparing for lockdown. I live in Northern Virginia. Who knows if it's the truth? MS-13 group detained with others. The Common Sense Show. I'll just jump into that. Hold off on the Senate thing for a minute. By the way, when I say the Senate lemon squeeze, what I'm talking about is what they're doing to Trump and the American people. And Trump just will not act. I've seen some other people on there, some very reliable people on Twitter, call for the arrest of Adam Schiff and a lot of people. But you know what? None of that is going to happen. None of that's going to happen. By the way, I do have my caramel coffee. So we'll get to the Senate in a few minutes. Let me talk about what I found last night. Now, when I say I don't follow anybody on a regular basis, I'm not saying that to put them down. Okay? I'm aware of Dave Hodges. I have watched the Common Sense Show from time to time, but it's just not my main source of information. Many times Dave Hodges gets things right on the money. I'm not saying he doesn't, but there's some other things that have happened. And so when it comes to Intel is very fluid, and I've talked about this before. I realize things aren't, exactly the way they're interpreted. I understand all that. I did that kind of work. I understand. But and there's nothing wrong with giving out a warning order, so to speak. Saying this is what we're hearing. We can't verify it, but keep your heads up. That kind of thing. That's fine. But I just want you to know that I don't really follow Dave. Okay, I don't. But every once in a while somebody asks me to look at it, and when I do, I go, wow. Well, yesterday he put up a video, a report on the war between in the government. Actually, it was an article. It was an article on his website, I believe, and I read through it, and I have to admit that knowing what I know, what I talked about in the Boston bombing series that I did back in at that time when the Boston bombing situation occurred with the Zarnov brothers and all that fiasco, the government releasing an army of police, violating everybody's First, Second, and Fourth Amendment rights and all their other rights, looking for that one lone teenager and the whole other thing that was going on there in Waterton, which was a national disgrace as far as I'm concerned. I realized that was a show of force by one side of the shadow government against another. And I talk about that in those videos. And it was actually those situations. Let's see if I think maybe the sound is a little too loud. When I get going, I don't realize how loud I'm talking. So let me back this off a little bit. When I put that information out, that's when I had been harassed a little bit by intelligence community trolls, I'll call them that. People that are kind of feeling you out and just on there. They're the cyber warriors that are supposed to protect us, but in fact are warring against us every day. And I'm not saying they're all U.S. Some are Chinese. I understand, Israeli and others. I know. But the point is I was mildly assaulted on my YouTube channel at that time. And I could tell who was who. You get the regular trolls that are just trying to cause trouble, and then you get those who you can see they're trying to manipulate you because they're professionals or think they are. So, at any rate, during the Boston bombing thing, right as I was putting it up, and ever since then, it became a deluge of attacks. Everything from questioning my military background to bringing up my personal history, all kinds of things, denigrating my service. Twisting, it's not that they lie necessarily, although they did that too, but they twist things to make it seem like it's other than what it really is. So I've gone through all that, and my point of that is that I brought up this war in the government very early on. Okay, so that's why this thing from Dave Hodges caught my eye, and you should probably go read it. And he put it up yesterday, I believe. And basically, I think that he's correct. We've seen some things happening. There were some altercations in New York between the CIA and the DEA, different elements of that. We see it in everything that's happening, actually, but we don't hear about the violence that's occurring underneath the surface. The fact is it's boiling. I'm not saying they're actually, there's an all-out war and they're shooting at each other at this point. I'm not saying that. My problem is I'm not sure any of this is for the right reason. I'm really not sure it's for the right reason. I think it's more of a power play than it is anything about standing up for constitutional Bill of Rights issues or protection of the people, the American people. I think we've lost it at that point. I just don't see that any of this is going to do us any good. I don't like what Trump is doing and what he's not doing. As you all know, I'm very upset about that. Not that I'm upset at what he represents on the face, but the actual situation on the ground. But at any rate, I think things, and I have to speak scripture here, and I'm sorry, but it also has to go along with human nature. There's a scripture that says the wicked will destroy the wicked. That doesn't mean you can't defend yourself. But there are things that are being forced on us to do stuff now. Do stuff. That's bad grammar. Things are happening that are where people are trying to force us to act in ways that are inappropriate. And that's going to happen in a government that has no morality inside the government. And I'm afraid that's what's going on. You know, the scriptures say, and this is why I said, pray, stay out of the way, stay out of the way. Not that you can't get involved in trying to correct things, but realize that when these forces go against each other, there's really not going to be a good and a bad. They're all in the gray area. They're all a little good, they're all a little bad. And that defines all of us anyway. That's why I say we haven't followed the principles of the Constitution. We've really lost that. You know, Nancy Pelosi is a perfect example. She violates the Constitution on a daily basis, advocates the violation of the Constitution on a daily basis, and then uses it to try to justify herself to the country. I mean, the hypocrisy and the evil is just so deep that this country, I'm afraid, really, I'm not even sure it deserves to continue at this point. Maybe the balkanization is the best thing. You all know I'm jumping around a little bit, but you know that yesterday, if you were paying attention, Vladimir Putin dissolved the government there in Russia. I'm looking into that. I think that there are probably some good reasons for him doing that. I don't think that it's a power grab on his part as much as it is he's trying to correct the system. Do you see what I'm saying? It's something very similar to that is what Trump is attesting that he's trying to do, but in reality has not done and is failing miserably in it. I could get into that deeper, but I just from what I'm seeing happening there, I think I understand what's happening in Russia, and it's something we need a reset here, and no one has the courage to do it despite big words and big rallies and rah rah rah, et cetera, et cetera. And again, we'll get into that he can't, Trump can't do that, and nobody else can do it. It's too big. It's been here too long. Yeah, okay. So getting back to Dave Hodges, he's saying that some bad things are happening in the government, that it looks like there is going to be a war inside the government that may have already started. He talks about FBI agents, etc., on one side and in the other, and they're making threats to each other. A lot of FBI agents and other federal agents are arming their families because they're afraid of other agents. I have no doubt that's true. I mean, if you consider it, the American people are as it stands right now, we don't trust the government by and large. The leftist Marxists do. I mean, as far as trusting people like Pelosi and Schiff and all that, Hillary Clinton. But I think most conservative constitutionalists are wary. They've been cautiously optimistic by and large, with the exception of those crazy rallies that I'm really getting tired of, and you all know that I said that. So I'm not going to delve into it much more than that. I just think you need to go look at Dave Hodges' The Common Sense Show and read that. He may have had a video about it too, but I read an article. Go read that and see where his concerns are. I don't know how reliable his sources are, but a lot of it was ringing true to what I know. Okay, so I think that's probably very likely. So I just wanted to bring that up, and in that same vein, I wanted to bring up on Alex Jones' show yesterday, he spent some time talking to police officers. Especially there was one who claimed to be, there were a couple that I listened to them and I wasn't sure they were who they said they were. Okay, how, you really don't know, but many of the police officers are brought up from low. I mean, a lot of places require them to have bachelor's degrees now, but what is a bachelor's degree? I mean, these days it's not much better than a 10th grade education in many cases. So just because they have a university degree doesn't mean much. But honestly, what I heard disturbed me, and it wasn't so much they said that Obama was running this. I have no doubt. The shadow government's alive and well because Trump won't take it out. Yeah, I know. I don't doubt that Obama's running this with the help of Soros and the Rothschilds and whoever else, the Chinese. I have no doubt about that. But it bothered me, and that information I think was accurate, But it bothered me when this one trooper said, the people need to go and arrest these people in the governor's office and in the legislature. The people need to do it because I'm not going to do it. I've got to enforce the law. I'm not going to take any chances. And if I stop you on the road, even though I don't like the law, and I find one of these weapons or magazines in your vehicle, I'm going to arrest you. We're not necessarily going to go door to door, but if I find it in your car, I'm going to arrest you. Coward. Coward. He wants a citizen to make a citizen's arrest against the governor and the legislature. He has law enforcement authority. What's wrong with you, buddy? Why don't you put your money where your mouth is? Oh, I've got to take care of my family. I've got my pension. I've got little kids to feed. Yeah, and so does everybody else. You hypocrite, wicked, evil. Maybe you're just misled or stupid, but you're a coward. And I wanted to come. That's really why I wanted to come on today. I want to call cops like that cowards, because you are. You took the oath to defend and support the Constitution of the United States. A lot of citizens haven't done that. And you're saying that they should go do your job? Why aren't you in the FBI office? Oh, I don't trust the FBI either. Why don't you find a way to get Northam arrested? Oh, there's no way I can do that. There's no way I can do that. Yeah, right. You have a lot better chance of making something like that stick than a citizen. Damn. This is the attitude. And this is the same attitude in the if you have good agents in the FBI, this is exactly the way they act. I'm going to do what I'm told, even though it violates the Constitution, because it's a law. Buddy in Virginia, and send this to that asshole. Did you ever hear of Marbury versus Madison that says that no law that is made that is against the Constitution has any force? That it's null and void on its inception? Have you ever heard of that, idiot? And you're going to enforce it. Why? Because it's the law. Oh my God. See what I'm saying? I'm not going to comment on what Jones said about the Virginia rally protest. I'm just not going to say it. What I am going to say is that both Matt Bracken and I were... This isn't a cowardly position. I understand tactics, okay? I understand optics. I did wish that they had held this thing in a slightly different place, like Woodstock did at Yazger's farm, and you've heard me talk about that. You think that's lacking guts? You think that's cowardice? No. That's making sure that you make your statement without provoking a problem. That's all I'm saying, and that's what Matt Bracken was saying. Well, now, I guess, that idea has been somewhat mitigated because the governor's declared a state of emergency. What? This guy who advocates the killing of babies calls a state of emergency because people are going to come and say, no, this isn't right. Virginia was one of the places, Patrick Henry and these guys, they were formidable. They basically threatened to go after the British governor at the time. Personally, again, I'm referring to the Virginia trooper here, how idiotic his statements were yesterday, and how disgusting. He may have given us some good information, but he shows who he is and how all the others are. So at any rate, I understand the point of bringing arms into Virginia there. I understand that. But I also understand a trap when I see one. And so Governor Northam, if the demonstrators follow this requirement and show up in the government square there without weapons, Northam may have just shot himself in the foot. What they wanted, he may have just screwed himself, because they want this civil war. Don't kid yourself. Supposedly some threats were made, well, that's easy. Where did that come from? I mean, Northam could have had one of his flunkies call into a switchboard and say, hey, we're going to do this at the demonstration. We're going to come in the legislature and shoot all the legislators, whatever. That doesn't mean anything to me. Their intelligence is that bad, they don't deserve to be in power. But at any rate, so it may be mitigated at this point where maybe the good constitutional folks that are going there to stand up for the rights this may be a blessing in disguise. I would also still prefer that they find a large private area not far from there, and then they could carry their weapons too. But at any rate, Northam, of course, is evil to the core. I see that they have a state representative, Virginia, who was elected by the people, I guess, knowing that he's been arrested on child pornography charges, legitimate ones, not ones that are planted on him by the crooked cops or otherwise, and he's been elected. And we have all these other things going on about this stuff in this nation, and it's disgusting. And that's why I say what Putin just did in Russia might not be such a bad thing. The only thing, it's like I've said in our country, I don't really give a crap about the administrations of the Constitution, how that's set up. I really don't care. The only thing that I care about is the Bill of Rights and the things in the Constitution that protect us from government overreach. For instance, like anyway, a couple of different things. I could waste some time going through them here, but I guess I won't. So at any rate, I look at this thing from Virginia, and it's just, you're going to see these, just like they did at Bundy Ranch, guys with badges and guns doing it because that's what they're told to do. Very sad situation. Well, and essentially that's what Trump's doing. I can see where he's done a few things right and wants the people to rise up so that he can. I'm putting myself in his shoes. I'm not saying this is how he's really thinking, but he goes a little distance, and then he sees that the people as a group will stand up and support him. And if they don't do that, he'll back away. Has that happened? Maybe. The people have to take more responsibility for their own liberties. That's true. But I'm not saying that's what he's really doing. The people are the final arbiters of their liberties and of the law itself, really, if you think about it. But we've all been sheepled down for so long. Okay, well, I'm rambling on here, and I kind of knew I was going to do that this morning. Okay. Another thing on Virginia, I suppose. This is worrisome, of course. It could be the flashpoint deliberately. West Virginia stood up. I thought that was interesting. West Virginia said that they'll be there for the sanctuary people. Pretty cool stuff, really. But I did want to point out one other thing here. And it disturbs me a little bit, like so many other things. Thousands and millions of people have become upset about the Second Amendment infringements, and rightly so. And the First Amendment infringements, rightly so. I'm not saying that that's not a good thing. But we all know that Northam said he was killing babies. He was advocating that after they're born, even. Where were the thousands and millions that are willing to go to Virginia and demonstrate against that? Again, I'm not saying it's wrong to go and demonstrate on the Second Amendment issues and the First, etc. But how come nothing like this happened about the babies? Just a thought. Like Trump saying, we've got to protect the children, we've got to save the kids. He's done nothing. Instituted some red flag laws that were contrary to the Second Amendment. Yes, he instituted them. He pushed things down that road. Now we've got Barr coming out with the Guardian program, pre-crime surveillance program. Oh, how nice. I'm losing more respect for Barr. I'm losing respect for Barr more and more every day. He's helping the FBI and the DOJ to cover things up at this point, and it's very, very obvious. And why is he doing that? Well, I'll tell you why. Because Trump is letting him get away with it. And now we're going to move to the Senate lemon squeeze. Trump is portraying that he won't do what the deep state wants him to do, when in fact he's done almost everything the deep state wants him to do. I'm not going to make a list pro and con, for and against. I'm not going to do that here. I'm not saying he hasn't done a lot of good things. But to claim that a lot of this is out of his control, no, it's lack of willingness to use his authority. And I respect a lot of people out there that have his back. I understand that. I want to have his back, but how has he reacted in having our backs? This always turns into a Trump bashing session. Let me back off for a minute. Let me tell you how loathing I am of Nancy Pelosi, Dianne Feinstein, Adam Schiff, Nadler, and I could name a lot of others. And of course, Brennan, Clapper, Comey, Soros. I loathe those people, and I shouldn't. I should look at them and say, where you're going to end up after all this, I wouldn't want to be there. And I'm talking about, in front of God, explaining what they were up to in reality. Willing to, and I'm not talking about Noahide laws, okay? All right? But you falsely accuse somebody, and karma's going to have you falsely accused at some point, and you're going to suffer those consequences. I wouldn't want to be in their shoes. Pretending to be for the Constitutional Republic of the United States and in fact subverting it at every opportunity they have, taking kickbacks from all these governments. Do I think Trump was taking kickbacks from Ukraine? No. Trying to change the election? No. Despite my distrust of many of the things he does and doesn't do, no. I don't think that's true at all. And this whole thing with Parnas and all that they're looking at now, bringing in new testimony, you can't do that in a court of law. I don't know if you know this or not. When you finally put in, the charges and all that, you can add charges in another trial portion, but once you're filed, you're pretty much stuck with that. Well, this bringing up this new evidence after, in other words, it's like having a trial. You've done it, and now you want to appeal it to the next court. Well, you really can't introduce any new evidence at that point. You have to go on the merits or the demerits of the case as it was presented. In other words, there's I forget what it's called legally, but it's a scope. You have to stay within the scope of the original situation, and if you don't do it, the appeals court will. Normally, that's how it's supposed to work. Well, that's the same thing here. They're asking the Senate to try this, but the Senate's supposed to try it on what they actually filed their impeachment upon the House. And now they want to alter that. No. They could start another impeachment if they want on new information, but they can't pull this crap. They can't. And if the Senate lets them, and Rand Paul even said this, if they want to bring in new witnesses and stuff like that are outside the parameters of the House impeachment, then President Trump and the Republicans should be able to bring in some too, like Biden. Anyway, you see how ridiculous our whole system is broken, ladies and gentlemen, and nobody will stand up for the correct methods. Well, Rand Paul's doing okay, but at any rate. So the lemon squeeze. What I think is happening here, just kind of looking at it from a 60,000 foot point of view. Remember, just because I say that they're after Trump doesn't mean that Trump doesn't have his problems. when you have, and I'm not accusing him of being a mafioso, for crying out loud. I'm not saying that. But in some way, shape, or form, his opposition looks at him as being a disruption to their operation. And it could be nothing more. It might be that he has no interest in really protecting the constitutional republic. That might not be his motivations at all. And frankly, with his lack of understanding of the Constitution, I'm beginning to believe that's the case, that that's not really what he's up to here. Funding the MIC, the military-industrial complex, not doing anything on the border, sending troops overseas still, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The Second Amendment violations, no action on the First Amendment, no action on voter fraud, you get the point. Words and no actions. But what's his motivation? And it could be as simple as he's just the new mafioso in town. Again, I don't mean to call him that, but for the sake of the illustration, I need to do that. In other words, this mafioso trying to stop the competition from this mafioso. It could just be that simple. Which is really what's going on in Russia, but I have a lot more respect for Putin right now than I do for Trump. Putin made sure that he gathered his power together. Now, I realize that Trump is a neophyte. He came into the political thing just recently. He's never done this before, and I give him a lot of leeway for that. But talking tough isn't going to cut it anymore without action. We talked about some of Bill Barr's cover-ups the other day, and they're continuing to this day. This thing on Epstein is a real pointer at Barr. A real pointer, because that shows that he's trying to protect in one way or the other. No matter what really happened to Epstein, it shows one way or the other that he's protecting the elite pedophiles and political enemies of the American people and of the world. Not a good sign. So I appreciate what Rich Higgins has said about Barr and Durham, but as I've said all along, I got to see it to believe it. And I don't need to give Barr the benefit of the doubt until he does something, because his lack of doing something is proof prima facie until he does something. And they can use all the excuses in the world about how detailed the investigations have to be and how long this takes, because we didn't just get here in 3 years. We got here in 30 years, and you can't expect it to turn around in 3 or 4 years. Horse manure. Horse hockey. I had a federal investigator work for me at one time. That was what he used to say. He wouldn't say a cuss word if his life depended on it. So horse hockey was usually his utterance when he was displeased about something. So, at any rate, why am I talking about all this? Well, because what I'm going to say about the lemon squeeze is it's aimed at the American people, actually, but Trump is this centerpiece. And however he is actually opposed to the deep state, the New World Order, the establishment, etc., doesn't matter, okay? Because look at it as just two mafiosos fighting with each other, so it really doesn't matter. What they have done here is they've caused him all these problems with the Russiagate and with this, all this that's happened. Which again, they turned around and they say that we're Russians because we support, at least at some level, Trump and his policies, okay? At least his utterance of what those policies are, not necessarily his actions. But at any rate. So a lot of people said, well, this whole thing is a psyop to discourage the American people. Yeah, I believe that. I do believe that. Whether Trump's in on it or not, I don't know. But that's exactly how it's being used. It's kind of the reverse of what was her name? Tokyo Jane or something like. No, that was Jane Fonda, Hanoi Jane. Anyway, that type of propaganda, that type of psychological warfare. Yeah, I have no doubt about that. I think that's very true. But what they've done with all of these attacks is they've set it up to where, look what we can do. Just like Schumer said, you go against the intelligence community and get back at you 6 ways from Sunday. Well, why does he know that? Well, because he's a part of it. And he was warning that that's what's going to happen. And again, those attacks are against us. So at any rate, the lemon squeeze. And again, I'm sorry for that. Anyway, I'll get past that. So what they have now is they've done this impeachment in the House, which was totally absurd. And you hear people like Ted Cruz, et cetera, standing up and saying, these aren't impeachable offenses. They just aren't. And so it's going to be turned away in the Senate. We're going to have a trial. We're not going to have a dismissal because we don't have 51 votes. Well, why don't you have 51 votes? You see? I don't trust Cruz. Cruz, remember, was opposing Trump. Cruz has done some crazy stuff. Certainly Rubio has. and others. You've got this problem with Mitt Romney. You've got this problem with Mike Lee. And that's just a few of them. So they're going to attack Trump, but they're really attacking us. And what this entire thing, in my view, is, even Lindsey Graham. Trump, we're dangling the noose in front of you and telling you that if you don't do it the way we're telling you to, we're going to hang you. It might look all that good right now, but mind you, we've gotten the impeachment to move forward, and now we can do this any way we want to force you to do what we want you to do. Do you see? Think historically for a minute. What would have happened if they had tried to impeach Lincoln? Now, I don't like Lincoln. Okay, I don't like what he did. I don't like what he stood for. A lot of people are going, "What? He was an American patriot. He was one of the greatest presidents in the country of the country's history." No, not when you really study what he was about and what he was doing politically. But that's kind of a different story. I don't want to go there right now. What I do want us to talk about is what he did to those who rose up against the Republic. He arrested them. He didn't care if Congress was in session. He didn't care about newspapers, anything that was contrary to the good of the country. He went after them. Now, I'm not saying that's necessarily a good thing. Okay, you need those voices of dissent. You do in order to understand things. But by the same token, to say that, I'm not saying that you shouldn't do nothing. When there is seditious talk where people are calling for the abrogation and the infringement of any of the Bill of Rights, like they are in Virginia or like they have in the Congress, when you have seditious talking about tearing down the Constitution, I don't care what Pelosi's playing up front, it's what she does that matters. Trying to take down a duly elected president with lies and distortions. This is sedition in our intelligence community. Okay? And Trump should have acted on it a long time ago. Oh, he doesn't have the support, Roy. He's never going to have that support if you use that parameter. He'll never have it. It takes cojones, the right lemons, I guess. Okay? Look. So what are they doing? They're hanging this thing in front of him and saying, you better play ball because we're going to do this and we'll end up putting, not just throwing you out of office, but now we've got the tool to throw you in jail, in your family, etc. Do I think that this is what's going on? I think it's exactly what's going on. I don't trust Lindsey Graham as far as I can see him or throw him. So that's a very wandering, all-encompassing, not all-encompassing, but kind of a general idea of how I'm feeling this morning and what I see. And I as I've said all along, I think we're in a lot of trouble. We've got to be willing to stand on our own and not depend upon anybody, not even Trump, especially not Trump at this point. Vaccines are going crazy. He's pushing that. He's pushing 5G. He hasn't said anything contrary to stratospheric aerosol injection. And people say, well, Roy, he can't do all that. It's called delegation of authority. I want you to do this. I want you to do this. I want you to do this. And if you don't do it, I'm firing you. There's none of that going on. Oh, but people refuse to take his orders. As Rich Higgins pointed out, people are policy. Personnel is policy. Personnel is the institution. He's got no one to blame but himself. I don't care if Rudy Giuliani turned him down when he asked him to be his AG, because Rudy Giuliani really I can't even say his name. Rudy Giuliani really wanted to be the vice president, or any number of these other past political people are present. Newt Gingrich, for instance, turned him down because he wasn't the vice president. Maybe he wanted him to be the Secretary of State, but no, Newt wanted to be the VP. Whatever, I don't care. And my Republican friend and I go back and forth on this all the time, and frankly, I don't give a damn. So how does Trump get these things done? Delegation of authority. You do this and you do it right. Do it now. There's no follow-up. How in the hell did he become a billionaire? Shit, gang members know how to delegate authority, for crying out loud. Little punky little junior high gang members. In the military, that's one of the first things you're taught is to delegate authority. What in the hell is going on in the White House? Oh, he'll give it to Jared and to Ivanka? You know how I feel about that. So, let's see what you guys are talking about this morning. We've already been going for 40-something minutes here. Sally Ann Deegan, what can we do about Congress breaking constitutional laws? There's only one remedy to that, and it's not the ballot box. And I'm not advocating it. I'm just saying we're at that point. Your law enforcement doesn't even do it. How did Barry Soetoro become president of the United States when we were supposed to have an intelligence community and a Senate that's looking out for us, making sure that things are right? I know. That's why I'm saying, I don't think there's any way to save this. And Putin saw that in Russia, and he just said, to hell with it. I'm dissolving the whole damn thing. We're starting all over again. That's dangerous for us because we could lose our Bill of Rights in the process. So I'm not sure that's the way to go. But that's how bad this is. That's how bad it is. I'd like to rely on God, Gary. Okay, and in the end, that's what we do. But that doesn't mean we sit back and say, God, you take care of it. I know there are those philosophies that say that. But we're not here to lack experience. We're not here to come here and sit back and enjoy the show, like Q says. Okay, we're here to take part in the unfolding of history, and how you select where you are will decide what God does with you next. He already knows, but you've got to find out for yourself. We're defining ourselves here. So I don't say God will take care of it. I don't on either side. You have to make a stand, pro or con. Okay? And you have to do something about it. That doesn't mean you have to go out and get yourself killed. Sometimes that happens. No, I'm not for staying back and saying God's in control and he's going to take care of it. I've never liked that. In history, normally, there have been some exceptions. If you look at the scriptures, you have the flood, stuff like that, But by and large, if you look at the way history has worked, God has worked through men. Sorry, but that's the facts. So you've got to be willing to be used by God. Okay, and Alex Jones talks about that, and if you read the scriptures, that's exactly what happens. Sometimes God will reach down and say, hey, I chose you for this job before, but how does he do it? He does it through a guy like Moses, like Samuel, etc. Okay, let's get off of that subject. Yeah, there's a lot of weather warfare going on. Daniel Michael Charrier, we've talked about that before. We could spend hours and hours on that. I know. Yeah, Debbie Bruno, the founders are rolling over. Oh, you can betcha they are. Lake and Flow, Virginia equals Hegelian dialectic. Yeah, sponsored by the state. Yeah, absolutely. And Trump has the authority to step in on this. Eisenhower stepped in on it when the states were violating civil rights. Kennedy did, and believe it or not, even Johnson did. Was it Johnson or Nixon? Now I'm not sure. George Wallace was telling the states. Yeah, I think it was Kennedy. George Wallace was in Alabama was barring blacks from going to schools. So we have the precedent for when these civil rights are violated, that the federal government can step in and either sue the states or take more strict action like criminal action. Not a peep. Killing babies, the most innocent in our society, nothing. Violations of the First Amendment, nothing. Words. Violations of the Second Amendment, even worse there, both in the First and Second, as I pointed out ad infinitum. Oh, we're going to increase surveillance, violating your First Amendment rights, and your Second, because if you say something wrong, we're going to take your guns. Take your guns and then due process. Do you realize how evil that is? Yes, I think most of you do. Yes, thank you for bringing that up, Straight Arrow 62. Trump. Flynn withdrew his guilty plea. This is interesting. Flynn's playing the system at very great injury and danger to himself and his family and his closest associates. He's playing this out. I think he's wanted. Flynn, of everybody in the government, Flynn has made it his calling to out the deep state and the shadow government. And I think that when he's been playing this thing, he wouldn't withdraw his plea. And I've been watching this pretty close. I'm not an expert like Sidney Powell, no way, shape, or form. But I see him allowing the courts to do these things, and in particular the DOJ and the FBI to do these things. Both extremely corrupt institutions that should be destroyed today. Destroyed. Send those law enforcement requirements back to the states. Anyway, I have the feeling that even at the great danger to himself, this great man, General Flynn, has more so than Trump. Trump's benefited from what Flynn has done in exposing the deep state, but Flynn, more than anybody else, has taken this thing. And I think when he first refused to pull his guilty plea, even the judge was surprised and couldn't figure it out, because all the evidence, even at that point, was that he had been framed. So what was going on here? Well, the judge is kind of, a lot of people are finding fault with Sullivan, and I do too, but by the same token, he can only do what is presented to him. That's why you have to make motions in a court. You have to ask the court to move. And if you don't, then you're kind of stuck with where you are. And I do understand that. I'm not saying that Sullivan is a brave guy. He's acting quite cowardly, I think. I think he's probably been approached by the bad side. But regardless of that, Flynn has allowed this thing, I think, to come to the point where now it's come out, and it's very easy to see that the DOJ wanted to suborn perjury and have Flynn actually lie. That's very obvious at this point. If this goes back to court, if the DOJ does not dismiss it at this point, short of killing Flynn and maybe Sidney Powell, they've really opened themselves up. If it can proceed correctly, and I'm not sure it will. This is a big gamble on Flynn's part. This, more than Trump, could destroy the deep state and what they're about. It's a big gamble on General Flynn's part. But if he goes back to court now and they can get all the exculpatory evidence, and I guess it would be a new trial, I would think. I'm not sure how that would work, whether it would be a continuation where they'd open it back. I think they'd have to have a new trial. Probably. Not sure about that. Somebody like Mike Cernovich or those types of people, Will Chamberlain would know better than me. I've been out of that for way too long. Better than I. Better use the right English. So, praise for General Flynn and what he's going through, and thank God for Sidney Powell. I have so much. The women in this thing have been the ones standing up more than anybody else. You know, there's a scripture that says, I'll show you a strange thing in the earth. A woman shall compass a man. Not putting women ahead of men, but that women will come to the defense of the good men. And there'll be few of those. That there are few men left. God bless Sidney Powell. God bless Nancy Morgan Hart of Headlines with a Voice. God bless Gigi Sims. God bless Michelle Malkin. And I could name a lot of others. Man, I'm talking too much. Let's see what you guys got going on. Melinda Ann Burns, karma ain't no lady. You must be talking from experience. I know, I agree. That's why I started doing this, because I knew that I had to do something to, not that I can do it, but counter all the bad stuff I did, working for this corrupt government on and off for, 30 years. Yeah, Jack Kennedy, I'm aware of that, about the old lady in Atlantic City. I know. See, there are those things, and I've talked about in the past about the situation where he stiffed all of many of the contractors. One, a personal friend of mine in Vegas, on the building of his buildings down there. I know, on technicalities, he just didn't want to pay him. Yeah, I know. I know. Yeah, Mike Guyver, you're right. I'm going to read him. He says, Trump will soon be saying, thinking he's off the hook because of what he proclaimed to get elected, he will be saying, because of this, I am forced to do that. Yeah, I know. Exactly what I'm saying about the lemon squeeze. Okay. Man, it was, again, I got to tell you how funny that was, because I thought, what am I trying to say here? Oh, yeah, like squeezing a lemon. I was thinking about the actual tool that you use to squeeze a lemon with. I was going to use that, and I couldn't remember what it's called. A lemon squeezer, I guess. Hey. Yeah, Denise J. Yeah, distractions. That's psychological warfare. Everything is coming fast and furious to confuse you. That's why you have to ground yourself in principle. If it doesn't, and that's not saying it's going to save the country. I'm not saying that, but you just got to know where you are. So you ground yourself in principle. You don't pay it. You only follow a personality as far as they follow principle. And if they start to violate those principles, they're not real. And they can use any excuse they want. I don't really care. Like that Virginia trooper, that coward. God. Yeah, I'm just going down the list here, everybody. We've been going for almost an hour. I don't want to go much longer today. Barr is a bigger problem than Trump. That's why he was put in there. I think that there was an agreement made between the Bushes and Trump that Trump fell for. And now he has Barr in there, and he doesn't know what to do. Because Barr is doing things absolutely contrary. I mean, everybody, there was a thing put out, I think it was True Pundit. No, it wasn't True Pundit. I don't remember now, but that said that Barr is, Trump's guy. No, that's not the way this is working out at all. And as I said, Durham's going to be the big what Barr permits Durham to end in the end to do is going to tell us a lot. I'm not waiting for that. Okay, I figure that it's done now. This Senate trial this is the noose, and they're saying, Trump, we can hang you. You know how easy. I don't care what Mitch McConnell's saying to Nancy Pelosi. This is all no. They didn't have 51 votes to dismiss this. They are this is making Trump walk the plank, and if he doesn't cooperate, they're going to stick him in the back and throw him overboard. Yep. Well, all you got to do is look at Mitt Romney and Mike Lee and what they're doing, and what people like. As much as I like Ted Cruz, what he did before, I mean, all this. I don't trust. That's what this is. Daniel Grant, yeah, Epstein dying shattered my hopes of any light lords going down. That was the point. And Barr, what did he say? Oh, this is a perfect storm of screw-ups. And he's still the AG? Pam Jones, how you doing, lady? Pedophile Exposure Project. Everybody go look at her website, Pam Jones for Liberty Pedophile Exposure Project. She shows what's being done. As I said the other day, Pam, you'll notice who's being taken down. None of the elites, of course. Are they? In an investigation, you do go after the small fry and then you work up. But do you really think they're working up when they let Jeffrey Epstein disappear, whether he was murdered, committed suicide, or was carted away? This isn't going anywhere, Pam. I'm sorry, it's not. It's not. And they'll get us to the point where we're worried about our neighbors shooting us, or the police shooting us, or coming to get our guns, or taking away our kids, or forcing our vaccinations at threat of taking away our kids or our property. They'll get us so wound up in all that, we'll forget about the pedophile problem. Aren't they already doing that? This is Trump's fault. And it's our fault for not realizing it. Yeah, I know. Jack Kenny, I'm sorry. I keep hitting you up here, but yours jump out at me for some reason. Trump met Melania at Ghislaine Maxwell's Kit Kat Club, which hooked up supermodels with high rollers. Oh, I know. You know what, though? I can't believe that Melania is a bad lady. And it's not that I'm enamored with her physical beauty. No, I think any woman is going to, I mean, it's happened in my life where women, they could be manipulative. Matter of fact, I was going to do a show about that. Actually, I might even say it here. I might do a nightcap one of these days on this. We kind of did already, but we didn't go far enough with Michelle Anderson. But at any rate, I think Melania is really who she appears to be, and the maligning that she gets is. I mean, people at those high society things, they're going to rub elbows with bad people. I mean, it's unavoidable. You do it every day and you don't realize it. I'll tell you what, I worked with cops who had child porn. I didn't know it at the time. I found out about it later. And it wasn't like somebody else put it on their computer. No. These were magazines. Right? Computer stuff too. I didn't know that's what they were. So in these societies, you're going to rub. I rubbed elbows with David Petraeus. I worked for the guy. Does that mean I'm like him? No, not in any way, shape, or form. Well, the same thing here. So I hear what you're saying, Jack Kennedy, but it's not conclusive proof of a person's lack of character or righteousness or whatever. On Trump's side, maybe. Not necessarily there, though, either. Oh, I was going to say, since you got me going there, any man, this is where I was going to go with this thing with Melania, any man who will turn his back on a friend over a woman is a fool, is an absolute fool. And we might have a nightcap on that subject at some point in time. And believe me, I know that from personal experience. Okay? Bad idea. Yeah, jet fuel dumped. Yeah, I don't know what to think about that. I don't think it was on purpose. I think it was probably a matter of panic at that point. Kind of a what's worse. I wouldn't say that's not, these types of accidents can occur. I don't know what happened to that plane, but that it was an emergency landing. They had to get rid of their fuel. I don't like what happened. The poor kids and the teachers and all that got doused with that stuff, and whoever else. Terrible, terrible. Straight Barrel 62, I believe that too. Straight Arrow 62. Putin is a brilliant, knowledgeable, God-fearing man. He wasn't always that way. I think it was in his DNA, but it didn't come out until he had seen the bad side. And that happens sometimes. That you have to see the bad side to know where the good is. Okay, I'm going to bust down through here real fast because we're past an hour now. And it's hard for me to see these sometimes. Barr is tied with Epstein. Yeah, I know that oil field trash. We've talked about that many, many times. Yeah, Donald Reed. Yeah, Mitt Romney and Mike Lee and others want Trump out. Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. Regardless. Tony Blassetti, yeah, horse hockey. Yeah, that was my investigator that worked for me, federal investigator that worked for me. That was his saying. So, but that's okay. Yeah, I like what you're saying there, Tony Blassetti. That's all right. He basically said Colonel Potter ... horse hockey. So, yeah. So I'm coming down the list really, really, really fast here. I'm just seeing if anything stands out. Any questions? Israel wants war, Russia does not. Yeah, I agree with that. Okay, I'm almost at the end of the chat here, and I'm going to stop. Yeah, Trump, that's right, Mike McIver. Trump said to Iran, don't kill your protesters, don't kill your good people. Where was he and where is he now with what's going on in Virginia? With what happened at Bundy Ranch? Now, I know he wasn't president at the time, but his DOJ is going after those people again. And they brought an army out there, and they were going to shoot those people. And I'm not saying that bringing weapons was, weapons to protect you against criminals is one thing. You do that anywhere, but the government was planning on actually annihilating people. They're doing another 9/11 type thing. They were. I mean, it was obvious. And I saw it. How did I know? I was a garden plot commander. I know what's supposed to happen in civil disturbance operations. That was a war, and they were pushing it. Why doesn't Trump stop the DOJ from going after the Bundys now? They're getting ready to go to that Ninth Circuit appeal to reverse Judge Navarro's dismissal with prejudice. When has that ever happened? I suppose it's happened before, but in a case like this, where the hell are you, Trump? And what are you allowing Barr to do? Wow, so don't tell Iran what to do when you can't even control your government. Clean up your own house. Take the mote out of your eye before you try to take the beam out of somebody else's, Trump. I'm sorry. Again, I can't stand Nancy Pelosi. I can't stand Schiff. The Democrats are, I got accused the other day of, why do you call them Marxist communists, Roy? They're criminals. Yes, it's the same thing. Marxist communists are the same thing as criminals, okay? Does that help you understand where I feel about it? They're criminals. Yes, they are criminals. Criminals. Am I getting upset? I saw Dan Bongino yesterday. He was losing it. And rightly so. Okay. I think we're done. I want to thank everybody for coming. This was kind of a quick thing this morning. Again, the most important thing I think about today is the Senate is being used to get Trump in line. This is not good, okay? They'll probably acquit him, but with conditions. And it's not going to be for our benefit. You can bet it. It's not going to be for the benefit of the constitutional republic, the Constitution of the Bill of Rights. Next, what Dave Hodges has said about the war in the government, I think that's real. They're trying to pit Americans against Americans. This entire thing, he said, he lays it all out. Again, I'm not a big follower of Dave Hodges or the Common Sense Show. He's done some good things. I'm just not a regular follower of him. But go look at this on the war that's coming to the American people and the government. Inside the government and amongst the American people, I think it's right on. Get yourselves ready. Get your friends together. You're not going to be able to trust everybody, but get as many good friends around as you can. Get your supplies together. Don't do anything offensive, but you have every right under God's heaven to defend yourself. All right? Okay, I'm going to go. Thanks for coming, everybody. I know there were some problems with the transmission. I saw it jumping around a little bit. And in my start up this morning, like I said, I was doing 3 things at once, trying to start the show, answering a tweet, and looking up something. So I kind of messed up the beginning there. But anyway, that's what you do when you're real, I guess. So keep your eyes on the horizon, your ears to the ground. Keep your situational awareness really on high right now. And prep, pray, stay out of the way. Again, that doesn't mean to not be a voice. It doesn't mean not to stand up. It doesn't mean not to demonstrate. But don't get sucked into something that is just going to cause you troubles, okay? There'll come a time for that. People like Greg Sawyer are talking about the final stand, Matt Bracken, and there are others. Now, there are some people here that just hate Craig Sawyer, and I'm not going to get into that. That's a personality thing, I guess, and maybe they're not impressed with some of the things he's done. But, at that level, you can understand not being able to get done what you'd like to, all the time. But it might come down to, to where some serious things have to occur. I don't want it to go there, just like Alex Jones has said, it might come down to this. We don't want it. It's not going to be a good thing for anybody. But short of a strong leader like Putin, our country's done. Okay, we need a person to stand up. Trump said he was the guy. It's turned out he is not. We need a strong leader that'll give us competent authority backing, and we just don't have one, ladies and gentlemen. Not at the national level. There are sheriffs that are standing up. Some governors, like Greg Abbott. There are some, but they're few and far between. So hold on to the saddle and get ready. All right. Thanks, everybody, for coming. I'm out of here. We'll see if anything big happens, and we'll be watching this impeachment, of course. Well, now the trial. All right. Okay. Out for now. Thanks.